Today I'm going to show you some very important tips and strategies to help you get your photos into Luminar 3 safely. I have a lot of material to cover with you in a short amount of time, so I'm probably going to be talking fast. Luminar 3 with libraries comes out on December 18th, 2018 as a free upgrade for everyone who has Luminar 2018. If you don't have Luminar 2018, I have a special coupon code good for a discount. I will share that with you later in this event. So, how do you organize your photos in Luminar 3? Well, first, it depends on how you are currently organizing them. Recently, on my public Learn Skyloom's Luminar and Aurora HDR Facebook group, I ran a completely informal and unscientific poll where I asked my group members how they organize their photos. And the survey says, 46% of you use Lightroom, 27% use Photos or Aperture, 9% simply use Windows Explorer or Mac Finder on their computer, which means you are really just relying on a folder structure on their computer. 5% use Capture One Pro, and 14% were people who used other programs such as ON1, Picasa, DxO, Mylio, and a couple others. Well, now we have a new player in the image organization field, and it's called Luminar 3, with libraries by Skyloom. It's coming to you on December 18th, and you're probably going to want to know how to get your photos into it. That is why you're watching this webinar, right? Well, I'm here to help. We're going to take a look in particular at those top 3 ways you are organizing your photos based on my poll. Again, those were Lightroom, Photos and Aperture, and using your own computer's file folder structure. And I'm going to provide you with tips as well as strategies for dealing with your photos. And most importantly, I'm also going to tell you what problems you just might encounter when moving your photos over to Luminar 3. This is very important information I'm going to be giving you because you don't want to lose any of your photos or other data that you may have been working on for months or years or even decades. Now, even if you currently use other software programs that are not in this top 3 list, you are still going to get very valuable information on how Luminar 3 handles its library and catalog, so be sure to stick around. And lastly, I'll even show you how to get your photos into Luminar via your memory card. I am now going to turn the camera off on me for a while, and we are going to get started. Okay, here we are inside of Luminar 3, and we're taking a look at a test catalog that I've set up. Now, I set this catalog up at the very beginning when I first launched Luminar 3. When you do that, you're going to have a welcome screen, and there's going to be a couple slides that you navigate through, and it's going to give you the opportunity to set up your very first catalog. I ended up choosing the default location, which ends up being my Pictures folder on my Mac. You can, however, opt to save your catalog on an external hard drive if you choose. Now let's take a look at that folder on my computer, and we'll see here, this is the Luminar catalog. This is the catalog that was saved to my Pictures folder. And inside it on the Mac, there's 2 files and a history folder. The history folder is going to save all your history states when you're editing your photos. On a Windows computer, this is actually saved in a system folder and not inside of your catalog folder. This .luminar file here, this is the file that stores all of your keywords and your star ratings that you're adding to your photos, and it keeps track of where your photos are on your hard drive. It'll also store all your sample album information and all of that stuff. What this catalog folder does not save, however, are any image previews. Those are saved in a system folder, and that's the same for the Windows and the Mac computers. Now you can have more than one catalog. As you can see here, I have another catalog here of a raw archive folder that I have on my computer. It has a whole bunch of photos in it. So you're not limited to just one catalog, and this is really good. You know, if you're a wedding photographer, you may want to have different catalogs based on the different clients, the different couples that you have. If you're a travel photographer, you may want to have a different catalog based on the countries that you've photographed in, or even the states that you've visited. And you may even want to have a catalog that separates your business and your travel photography with your family photography. So any family snapshots, you might want to put those in a separate catalog. Now the folders that you add inside of Luminar 3 in the library, those are a mirrored copy on your hard drive. And as we're looking on the right hand side here, we can see that I added a folder called Test Luminar 3, and it has 4 subfolders in it. That was on my external RAID hard drive, and here is that folder right over here with those images inside and those subfolders. Now, a bunch of you have mentioned that you use Windows Explorer or your Mac Finder to organize your photos. into separate subfolders, and this is exactly how Luminar is really going to work right now for you. And honestly, if you organize your photos by Windows Explorer or by Mac Finder right now, you're going to love Luminar 3 because again, it's an exact copy of what you have on your hard drive, whatever you put into it. You can move things around inside the program or in your hard drive, and it's going to mirror that and reflect that change. Let's just take a look. For example, here we are in my Finder on the computer. If I take this Zion Fall folder and drag that into my Badlands folder, we can see here, right over here on the right-hand side, it brought it right in too. So on Luminar 3, it dragged that in and mirrored that. It's mirroring my hard drive, so that folder now is located inside the Badlands folder. I can go ahead and move that out, and let's bring that up here. And now I've just brought that back out of the Badlands folder, and if we look back at my hard drive, it's moved that on my hard drive as well. Now this is only going to mirror what you've put inside of Luminar, of course. And to do that, what you do is you add a new folder. So I'm going to click on the plus button here, and let's go ahead and add, well, let's take a look at this here. I'm going to add this folder. Now this is inside my raw archive folder, and I have a whole bunch of different folders that I've organized by state. And I'm going to bring in this Massachusetts folder here. If I click on add folder, it's going to bring this over here. Now, I did this folder in particular to show you one thing that I've noticed with Luminar 3, and that is there's no photos in here. But if we take a look on my hard drive, let's go navigate to that location. Let's go into Raw Archive, Massachusetts, and I definitely have photos in here. However, they did not get brought into Luminar 3. Now these files here, these are from an old Canon 1DS camera, and so this was around in the early 2000s. Now Luminar 2018 will open these files up. However, I don't know if this is a bug right now. I am using a pre-release version, but I just wanted to point this out for any of you photographers who have some really old files. Pay attention and make sure that those files are being brought inside of Luminar. Now, because Luminar can't see anything here with this folder, I'm just going to remove that. If I right-click on that folder, I can go here and click on Remove from Catalog. A window is going to pop up saying that the folder will be removed from your catalog and all edits will be discarded. So if I did any editing to any of those photos in there, I'm going to lose all those edits too. The source folder and original files will remain on your disk. So that's cool. You can remove that folder from your computer. And the folder is still going to be there. So my folder is still safe on my hard drive. Now, I want to point out here, though, this is very important too, you can only remove from the catalog your root folder. If I went over here and I wanted to remove the Zion Fall folder, for example, if I right-click on this, I only have the option of delete forever. I do not have that option of removing from the catalog. And this is the way Luminar indexes your photos. It's an all or nothing process when you are adding folders to Luminar to have it keep an eye on. Any of those subfolders, it's going to have to keep an eye on as well. So if I didn't want this Zion Fall folder to be archived and indexed by Luminar, I would need to move it out of this test Luminar 3 folder that I have here. And if I do that, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go over here and I'll just bring that to the root of my hard drive. We'll see over here on the right, Luminar now has no idea where it is. I've moved it outside of any folders that Luminar is paying attention to. I can easily go back in my Finder though, and click and drag and bring that back in. So for those of you using Windows Explorer and Mac Finder, you want to come up with a little bit of a strategy. I'm sure you already have one already on how you keep your photos organized. Luminar 3 is shipping in a few days on December 18th. Between now and then, you might want to clean up some things on your hard drive and maybe get them all into one big folder like I have over here. Me personally, I keep all my raw files in a raw archive folder that I have on the root of my hard drive. And the way I do the organization is based on state. And then if you go into one of these states, I have subfolders based on other locations that I've been in those states. There's really no right way or wrong way to set up a folder structure on your computer. I've seen other photographers do it by date. What really matters is that you know the way you have your photos organized on your computer. And then when you bring in those specific folders in Luminar, Luminar is going to do all the rest. Now you can end up moving photos from different locations here too. I could go into my Fall Tetons folder and I can drag and bring this into the Zion folder. So you can do organization inside of Luminar 3 to move photos around. What you cannot do, however, is rename any files. If you want to see what the file name is, click on Info in the upper right hand corner, and that'll give you the name of the file, but there is no way, I can't click on this, I can't rename this file at all. The only way currently you can rename files in Luminar is if you did a batch processing and export your files into a TIFF or a JPEG. That's the only time you can then have an option right now of renaming your files. Now, once you do have your files in here, let's take a look at a couple other things in the library. You have your folder structure down here. This is the copy of your hard drive right on the bottom here. Up on top, Luminar has created some shortcuts for you automatically. And what Luminar has done in the background, it's not changing anything on your hard drive, but what it's done is organized your photos into these shortcuts up here based on the year that you took your photos, based on the month, and even the day. So I can go right here and find all the photos that I photographed on Tuesday, September 18th of this year. You'll notice that the name changes up on top as well, and it'll tell you how many photos are in that folder. I can change the view of this grid, and I can have it listed by edit time, rating, pick, color label, file name, file type, and size. Now, if you do have a folder that has a whole bunch of JPEGs and TIFFs and, raw files maybe, you can have it organized by file type. Now, this particular folder is just all raw files, but if I did have JPEGs and TIFFs in here, it would organize it by the file type, group all the TIFFs together, group all the JPEGs together, group all the raw files together. However, I just want to let you know, it's going to be a little bit confusing because you do not have any option to see the file name at all on any of your thumbnails. So if you want to then find out where those TIFF files are, you're going to have to scroll up and click and have the info over here and then look for where those TIFF files are and where those raw files are and where those JPEG files are. So just wanted to give you that quick little tip if you are going to be organizing your folder by file type. I've definitely requested that Skyloom add an option to put file names here on the thumbnails for us to have as an option. Hopefully that gets into a future release of Luminar 3. When you are looking through your photos, you can hover over it. You can give them a star rating right away. You can give it a heart rating if it's one of your favorite photos. If we take a look in our library, once you start favoriting photos, you have a new shortcut up here. Any of the photos that you give as a heart, that's one of your favorites. You can click right here and instantly see all the photos that you favorited. We're inside my favorites folder right now. We can see that I have one photo that I did a star rating and another one I didn't. I could show all photos that have a 3-star or more. And now we're looking just at those star ratings inside that folder. I can double click on this photo too and look at it larger, and then I have access to the star ratings down below. There's also keyboard shortcuts as well. Here's the heart pick. I can also give it a color label as well. There is currently no way to organize by keywords or by any IPTC data, so you are limited to just color tags, heart ratings, and star ratings. So let's talk about that for just one quick second here. What does that mean in terms of organizing your photos? Let me go all the way back up here and let's turn this off. We'll take a look at all photos and we'll go back into all my photos. Currently, Luminar 3 does not play well with others. It's not going to read any of your keywords or star ratings or color tags that you might have from other programs. Usually that's done by an XMP file. And I'm going to discuss that in just a little bit once we get into using programs such as Lightroom or Photos or Aperture. But it's really important to note that you're really kind of starting off from scratch here when you bring in all your photos into Luminar 3. And for those of you who are using Windows Explorer or the Mac Finder to organize your photos, this is going to be really cool because now you have the option of starting to tag and rate your photos so that you can start organizing them inside of Luminar 3. Again, in just a bit, we're going to take a look at what happens if you've already been using Lightroom or Photos or Aperture. Before we do that though, I want to show you a couple other things here. We have albums. You can click and create a new album, and I'm just going to call this Sunset Photos. So I'll call that Sunset Photos. I can go into my library, and any photos that I see that were a sunset, this is a sunrise, but we'll just throw this in here into the sunset folder. I can drag and bring that into the album that I just created. And then here it is. Now these albums, these are virtual albums. Nothing has moved on my hard drive at all. It's just another way of organizing your photos inside of your catalog. You can have a whole bunch of photos. I'll do sunrise photos. And because this was actually a sunrise photo, I'll go ahead and drag that into there. We have now my sunrise photo and my sunset photo. I can get rid of this just by hitting my delete key. Now it didn't delete the photo, it just removed it from the album. You can go back into your library and you can select a whole bunch of photos and then click on album, and then it adds it automatically to that album, and we'll just call this new album. And there we go, I've instantly added a whole bunch of photos to another new album. Some other shortcuts you have are recently edited, so I can see all the photos that I edited today. If I had edited any other photos earlier this week or this month, I have shortcuts right there for them. Any photos that I recently added to my catalog are available right here by a shortcut as well. I can even bring in photos that I don't want to store in my catalog here, and I don't want Luminar to really keep track of. All I have to do is click on File, Open Images for Quick Edit, and let's just grab a real quick photo here. I'll go into one of my folders and I'll just select a photo at random, click on Open, and here we are, it's instantly in the edit mode. I can do some adjustments and then go back to my library, and you'll see here that I have a folder now of quick edits. These are all photos that I'm just doing a quick edit of. Luminar is not keeping track of where they are really on my computer, but it is keeping track of the edits so that I can go back in and do some more re-editing to the photo. Now I want to talk about one other thing here. Let's go into import. There's an import button up on top here. If I click on that, I can import images to certain locations on my computer, and it'll import those photos, and it'll also add them to my library. Now, as of right now, with the pre-release version on the Windows that I have, on the import, I can only add folders and open images for quick edit. I don't have an option just yet to import images to a specific location. So there are two ways you would use this import images to. One would be if you wanted to move photos from one location to another and use this import dialog to do that. Another would be if you're going to be importing photos from your camera card. Let's take a look at this import dialog, because there's some really important things you got to pay attention to here. Otherwise, you might not be bringing in all the photos you're expecting to bring in into your library. Let's go, we're going to import these into the folder, the Test Luminar 3 folder that I have. And let's go ahead and navigate. I have a folder here this folder has a photo in here, a black and white photo and a color photo. We're going to import this folder. Now I have this set to include subfolders, and let's take a look over here. We have options of either copy the images over or move the images over. Let's move the images over, and then let's take a look at organize. I can have them brought just into one folder, so it'll bring the photos into the root folder. I can keep the existing folder structure. I can have it organize it by year, month, day, or by year or month. Let's just see what happens when we bring in and keep the existing folder structure. I'll click on Import to Folder, and we'll take a look in here and look at what it did. Brought it in right over here, kept the existing folder structure. Here it is. I have the test duplicates import. That was the root folder. Here's my black and white photo. Here is my color photo. Let's take a look at the hard drive. We can see here, those photos are not here anymore. It moved it right out of there, and it brought it right into my Luminar 3 catalog. And here are the photos. Very cool. Now I want to show you something here that is very important if you have a lot of duplicate files on your computer. Let me go ahead and move those photos back into their original location, because I got to show you guys this thing here. So that was in the duplicate. Let's grab the color one. I'm just going to move this back over here. Let's go ahead and grab the black and white and bring that over here. We can see here now, Luminar has noticed that I've moved those out of there. I'm just going to get rid of that folder as well. So let's remove that. Now again, because this is a subfolder of my main folder, I have to delete it. So it's going to delete it, and it's going to give me a warning letting me know that it's going to delete it and there's no going back. So I'll click on delete. I didn't have any files in there anymore because I had just moved them back out. And we can see those right over here on my hard drive. Okay, going back to Luminar, let's go on Import Images to. We're going to import them into the same location again. But instead of keeping the existing file folder structure, let's have it do it by year, month, and day. And let's click on Import into Folder. Okay, let's take a look. We can see here that there was some activity in the lower right-hand side. It organized by year, by month, and by day. However, I only have one photo. What is going on here? Well, if you have duplicate files and they are named the same, and you are using, let's go back over here, and you are using the organization year, month, day, year, month, or into one folder, it's not going to bring in all your duplicates. Let's take a look at that file again. We can see here that the color, this is the color version, and it has the name 0257. And if we take a look at the black and white, which was imported into Luminar, let's go into that folder here. Let's go over here. What I ended up doing was making a duplicate of this file. One is color, one is black and white. I ended up leaving the same file name, and this is where I get into trouble, bringing these into Luminar via the import. Now, if you don't have duplicate files on your system, this isn't going to be a big issue for you, but I know some of you do. In fact, my fiance just cleaned up over 2 terabytes worth of duplicates on her system. So how do you get around that? Again, make sure when you're importing images, have the option to keep the existing folder structure. Let me go all the way back up to all my photos, and I'm just going to plug in my external drive right now, and just to show you what can be done on that as well. So if you click on import images to, let's just bring it into a folder here. What you do is navigate to your external hard drive. This is my card reader here. Go into the folder where all your photos are brought in, and some cameras, they will end up putting your photos in different folders. What I would do is just go to the root and click on include subfolders. And if you're bringing it in from a card reader, I would copy the images instead of moving them. And then you can also go ahead and choose which way you want to organize them when they are brought into Luminar. Now, I do just want to point out one thing here. Probably not going to happen to most of you at all, but if you should end up shooting more than 10,000 images in one day, you'll have duplicate file names, because usually the way these files are named by the camera, there's a 4-digit number at the very end. Well, once you hit 9,999, the numbering goes back to 0001. So if by some chance you somehow ended up shooting more than 10,000 photos in one day, you're going to have some duplicate file names in duplicate folders, and those images are not going to be brought in on the import unless you keep existing folder structure. What Luminar is looking for is the file name and also the creation date. The capture time that is associated with the file does not come into play here. I've tested this. I've changed the creation time, left the date the same, left the file name the same, and it won't bring in the same file name on the same day. Again, this is probably something that is not going to happen to most of you, but just wanted to let you know that that is out there. Okay, if you are a Photos user, and I have Photos installed on my computer, I do not have Aperture. However, what I'm going to tell you is going to be somewhat similar for those of you who use Aperture. I did a poll recently in my Learn Luminar and Aurora Facebook group, and I asked what percentage of people are doing keywords inside of Photos. 43% said they keyworded the majority of their photos, 27% said they keyworded a small percentage of their photos, 9% said they keyworded about half of their photos, and 21% of the people said they had no idea that you could even do keywords inside of Photos. If you're one of those 21%, you're going to be pretty much fine bringing your photos over from Photos. If you are the remaining percent, the majority here, and you have done some keywording or a whole lot of keywording, I'm not quite sure you're going to want to bring your photos over yet. Let's take a look at Photos. Let's bring that up right over here. And let me just go into my recent imports here. I'm just going to select a photo, and I'm going to click on the little info button up on top here, and we can see that I have keywords in here. That's how I organize my photos. Luminar does not handle keywords right now. So if keywords are important to you, my suggestion for you is to hold off bringing your photos in from Photos until Luminar 3 does support keywords. All that time you ended up spending doing all those keywords inside of Photos, it's basically going to be lost for as of right now, bringing your photos into Luminar. But for the 21% of you who didn't even know that keywords existed inside of Photos, the only thing you're going to really lose is your heart tags. So if you did any favorites with the heart, that is not going to be brought over into Luminar. How do you get your images from Photos into Luminar? There's 2 ways depending on the quality type that you want. First, you got to go into Preferences and make sure that you've checked this box here to use System Photo Library. Once you've done that, you can go over to Luminar, and let's click on Add Folder. And if I scroll down here, we'll notice that there is no media library over here. What you have to do is click on Import. and we'll click on import photos to, and I'll just put it in one of my subfolders. And then now we have a media option here. If I click on this, it's going to open up all my photos, and I can bring in all the photos that I have inside of the Photos program. It's important to note that the Photos program hides all these photos from you. You can't really see them unless you're using this media option over here. It's all in a proprietary database that they sort of hide away. So once you're in here, you can find the photos that you want to bring over. And when you select your photos and bring them over, I'll just bring over this photo right now. Here is that photo. It's important to note that it is not going to be bringing over the raw file, and it also changes the file name on you too. This was a raw file, and we can see here that this is the file name, 930170076 raw. Bringing it into Luminar 3 brings it down to a JPEG and kills the file name. I don't recommend bringing in your photos that way. The other way to do it is to go File, click on Export, and click on Export Unmodified Original for one photo. This is the one photo that I have selected. Now, this is going to be very similar for you Aperture users too. Now, by doing this, I have some options on file naming and subfolder format. Here's the important thing right here. Export IPTC as XMP. Now, here's that XMP file that I talked about earlier. What exactly is that? Let's just go ahead and export this. And you know what? I'm going to put this right in the root of that folder that I have that Luminar is watching. Let's click on Export Originals. Let's go ahead and take a look at Luminar 3. Let's go in here and let's go ahead and find that photo. And actually, because that photo, I had it imported into the very root of my folder structure here, it's actually going to be a little bit difficult to find. I can't do a search right now by file name. Let's go ahead and let's go navigate to my hard drive, and let's do it this way here. Let me just add a new folder, and we'll just call this Photos. And here is the files that were just exported out of the Photos program. Let's bring that into there. And now here we are inside of Luminar. I can easily find that photo. Here it is. It exported it. Here's the info. Exact file name that it was before. Doesn't have the heart that was attached to it before. Reason being is that there is an XMP file that Luminar does not read. Let's take a look at this XMP file very quickly. I'm going to click and open this with text edit. XMP files are just a data file that store all of your information in here. And we can take a look here. Here are the keywords that are listed right here. Here's the caption that's in here. If I had any star ratings or whatnot, all that information would be in here as well. Until Luminar 3 allows for the reading of XMP data, or they come up with some other solution to get your images out of photos, your keywords and tagging that you've done in other programs are not going to come through. Now, this is going to be the same thing for you Lightroom users. Lightroom is based on the same thing. You're not going to be able to, any of your star ratings, any tags that you've done, those are not going to carry over as well. You Lightroom users, you probably have a good portion of your images that are categorized by keywords. As of right now, the library function in organizing has limited use for you. Now, you can still bring your photos over and bring them over into Luminar, and let's go ahead and let's transfer to Luminar 3. This is going to transfer over the raw file. It'll open up Luminar 3, and I can still do all the editing that I want to this file. It is my raw file because it sent over the raw file. I just don't have access to the library when you're using this as a plugin inside of Lightroom. Same thing as if you're using this as a plugin inside of Photoshop, and you can also use Luminar as an extension inside of Photos and a plugin inside of Aperture. When you do use this as a plugin or an extension, you just lose access to the library. Everything else all works the same. Now, I'll give you one tip for you Lightroom users, and this could even work too with Aperture or Photos. If you have a bunch of photos that were all photographed, the same lighting conditions, same settings, one thing you could do is export these files. Go ahead and do File, Export, export them all as a TIFF, and then export them into a folder that Luminar is watching. If you end up doing that, you can go to that folder that Luminar is watching, and let's go ahead and do that. I'll go quickly File, Export. I'm going to click on, I have a folder right over here already on my hard drive that's called Work in Progress Lightroom. I'm going to save these as a TIFF and click on Export. Actually, that folder wasn't there, so let's go ahead and we'll just do this other folder that I have set up here. We'll export those 3 files. As those are exporting, over here in Luminar, I'm going to click and I'm going to add that folder so that Luminar pays attention to it. Here it is right here. There are those photos that I just exported from Lightroom. Now here is where probably the main benefit of the library is for you guys with Lightroom. If you go ahead and edit one of these photos, I'll just go ahead and grab a preset real fast. Let's just grab this one right here. You can now sync those settings to your other files and go ahead here under Image, Adjustments, and Sync Adjustments, and it's going to sync those to those 3 TIFF files. So that could end up speeding your workflow up if you have a lot of photos photographed under the same conditions that you can apply the same settings to. You will now have to export these though, and export them as a TIFF or JPEG, however you want to export them, and then go into Lightroom and import them back into your catalog. And seeing that we're talking about export, I just want to go here and show you one thing that I also discovered here. Let's go ahead and go to recently edited. Let's go ahead and grab this photo that I edited a little while ago. Now we can see here this photo is a raw file. What I'm going to do is export it. Let's go ahead and export it out of Luminar, and we'll just keep the same file name. And what I'm going to do is let's go to the folder that I had. We'll just put it in the test Lightroom folder that I had there. Let's go ahead and export that. Now notice that this had a color tag and a star rating. Now you would expect that star rating and color tag to carry over. Let's go ahead and take a look here in the test folder that I have. And the funny thing is right now, it doesn't even see it. Let's go ahead here. Let's go into that folder. There is the photo right there. Might be having an issue with this pre-release version. Let me quit out of it and let's launch it back up again. And there we go. It sees it. But notice those color tags that I did, the star ratings, none of that gets transferred over when you export a file into a TIFF or a JPEG or any other file format. So I just wanted to throw that tip out there for you. Now speaking about tips, I have a super important tip that I have to give you. This is really important for those of you who add new image layers to your photos. Let's just go ahead and grab this photo of Zion. Let's go into Edit. And we already have some adjustments made here. I'm going to go ahead and click on Add New Image Layer. Let's go ahead and let's just grab that black and white photo just for reference. Let's click on Open. That is now, of course, going to open it up on a whole top new layer here. It's right above my other photo, so there it is. Turn that layer off. I have that photo up on top. I'm just going to go over here and click on another photo for a second. I'm going to go into my Finder, and what I'm going to do is rename this. Let's just call it version 2, and I'm going to rename it in the Finder. Let's go back into Luminar. If we go to our library, our test catalog here, this was the photo, and we can see that it has been renamed to version 2. What about that photo that we were working on and we used that as an image layer? Let's click on that. All of a sudden it's gone. Let's go to Edit. Let's take a look here. I've lost the thumbnail. I've now basically, for all intents and purposes, lost that image. The reason for this is that Luminar is remembering where that image was on your hard drive. Now we just did this. This was inside the catalog, so Luminar's keeping a track of everything. But you may be doing composites from photos that are not inside of Luminar's catalog. If you move any of those photos that you've used in these composites, if you rename them at all, Luminar is going to have absolutely no idea where that file is anymore, and thus it will ruin your composite. Now, in this video here, I've gone ahead and I've showed you a lot of the good stuff about Luminar 3 with libraries, and I also wanted to show you some of the stuff that you're really going to have to pay attention to and think about so that you don't lose images, so that you don't lose work that you've done already in other programs. Some of you are going to find that the libraries function right now is totally awesome and is going to make a big difference in your workflow, especially for those of you who don't keyword at all and who use folder structures on your computer to organize your photo. I mean, this is going to be awesome. For those of you who are keywording and have been doing that in other programs and tagging and using those for your organization, right now Luminar 3 might not be the perfect thing for you for image organization. This is version 1 of their database, of their digital asset management, of their libraries function. And they have posted a roadmap, and they are going to be making improvements to this. And on their website is a list of the improvements that are going to be coming between January and July of 2019 to make this more functional. Having the ability to work with keywords, Lightroom migration, all of that is coming, and it's going to make this library function even better. But hopefully after watching this video, you're now at least a little bit more prepared on what it's going to take and what you're going to lose, what you're going to gain, what you're going to lose by bringing your photos into the library function at this moment. For me personally, the library doesn't have much function for it right now because I am a heavy keyword user and star rating user in other programs, so I'm not going to be able to bring that information over right away. But I absolutely love the editing version of Luminar, and it has been my go-to for editing, and it will continue to be. And as Luminar keeps on updating this, I will definitely be here letting you know all the good and the bad of those updates and teaching you any workarounds as well.